If you're in the market for an aftermarket exhaust system, then this is the video to watch because we're going to go over some of the things that can be easily overlooked with some nifty wording or marketing strategies. The first thing when it comes to selecting an exhaust is how long do you want the exhaust or where do you want it to run from? Because generally speaking, what we have are two different kinds. We have one that is typically referred to as a catback exhaust. So this is going to run all the way from your catalytic converter or downpipe all the way through the muffler. We also have systems that are axleback, which is going to pretty much refer to the rear wheels. As you can see here, the differences between the two. The axleback is pretty much only going to refer to everything after the rear axle. In this case, the muffler for the most part. So companies that usually offer this, it's just the muffler, or they break it up into segments where you can buy the muffler and then you can buy the mid-pipe. Mid-pipe pretty much refers to anything in between the muffler to the downpipe. So for all purposes today, we won't be talking about the downpipe because that's going to tie into kind of the local rules and regulations based off of where you're at. If you can run a high flow cat, if you can run a full on downpipe, or if you just have to run the stock system. So making sure that you're getting your money's worth in terms of whether you're getting an axleback or you're getting a full catback exhaust is the first thing to look for. Is what is it that you're actually getting for your money? So you can see here with this one, this is the X-Force exhaust that I have on my car currently. This is a full-on catback exhaust for about $1,800. Or sorry, after tax, going to be about $2,000. If you look at the Remus one, you can see it has it in different segments. Is that you can do a catback. So this is a two-piece section. You can say no thanks, and that's going to be your axleback exhaust. And that's going to be about $13 or $1,250. You go for the full-on catback. Now we're over $2,000. If we look at the AWE Touring Edition axleback exhaust, that's $14,000. So this is also going to play into your budget. Typically, the more pipe that you get for your exhaust, the more expensive it's going to be, which is the case, right? I don't know why AWE doesn't have a section, because they do make a mid pipe for this car. Maybe it's just not on this particular website where they package them together. So with the Remus, it's a better one to look at. For example, is $2,000 is for the whole kit, mid pipe, muffler, and tips. They do charge extra if you want the black tips, and the difference is about $2,140. So that's about a $900 difference. Or if you're able to find something like this, which is the Varix system from X-Force, a lot more affordable, has the full-on system. The way that it's integrated, it's very hard to hook this up to your OEM system. So you can't just take the muffler, hook it up. They pretty much sell it as an entire kit, catback, as well as the adjustable valves, which is another thing that you're going to want to look into, because if you're looking at a system which you can completely control, because say for instance, you don't want to wake up your neighbors when you do a cold start. And then if say for instance, you get extra attention and then, you get pulled over, you want to be able to control the valves, then this might be something that you want to look into because of that affordable price point. Because this is just going to reuse. Oh, well, let me blow up a picture. Well, you can see it right there. This is going to reuse the OEM valve system. And if I'm not mistaken, the AWE, it will house the valve system there. Let's see here, but there is actually no valve, right? So it will house the mechanism, the unit that you plug in to control the valves, but you can see there's actually nothing there for it to connect to. There's no valve in this system. In Remus, we can't really see it. Let's see here. If we get an angle of it. Let's see here. Can't really tell from that picture. I want to say that it looks like it just off of that shadow. I can't tell 100% there either. Let's look. And valve tips. Let's see here. And wonder why it won't let me blow up that picture. Okay, so let's just say that we have one of each. We'll give Remus the benefit of the doubt and say that they reuse the OEM system. The AWE kit will just house the unit, but they won't be controlling the valve. So like the unit will spin, it'll think that it's actually controlling the valves, but there's no valve that it's actually spinning. Whereas the Varick system from X-Force, you completely disconnect your OEM system. So you just tuck the wire away somewhere. And then with this, you hook it up and reroute it inside so that you have some power either to the cigarette lighter or you can tap it into a fuse. And you have a remote. And with the remote, at least in this particular exhaust, you can control it in increments of 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way to 100, you have control over that. So if that's something that you want, this is a really good value proposition from X-Force coming in at $18.50. Because if you were to get either the Remus at $21 for full catback, or even if you just wanted the axleback, saving a little bit of money, so you're saving even money than the X-Force here by $400. Actually, no, that's not going to work out because you need the valves. So let's just say we go with the Remus. No thanks. Say it's $1,200 or $1,250. To get a control module is going to be another $200. This is going to allow you to have full control over your exhaust. I know that you can use something like Bimmerlink, but then that's just going to be full open, full close. There's no kind of granular control that you have over those valves. You can kind of do it in BM3, but that's more so related to your RPMs and how much load the car has. So that again kind of locks you in for that parameter that you set. So an additional 200, it's going to put you at 1440, and you still don't have the mid pipe. So that's why I say that this one from X-Force is a very good value proposition. It fit pretty good in my car. There's a little bit of maneuvering when it comes to the heat shield, but nothing major had to be done. I didn't have to like completely reshape the exhaust or anything like that. It fit. You know, it's bigger piping, so that does factor in terms of like where it is in relation to the heat shield. But overall, it fit pretty good. You know, I've worked with SE Bimmer. I filmed some videos for them as they're fitting on some exhaust for like higher end models. Like mine's only like a 2 series, but they've had some G80 M3s, G82 M4s, and you know, some big brands like the ones that we're looking at right now, and the exhaust doesn't fit. Whether it be because the piping, whether it be that the contouring of the piping doesn't fit well. And so with every exhaust, don't expect it to go perfectly. It's not exactly bolt up like everything's going to align perfectly. There's a little bit of finesse that you have to do with your exhaust. So once you determine whether you want your axleback or catback, the next thing to look for is what type of material that you want. And the new shiny thing right now is titanium. Everybody wants titanium. It's lighter. It has that like tinging sound to it. It sounds nice, looks good, weighs less. The downside with titanium is 1, price, and 2, durability. Jumping into durability, whether you get the really expensive titanium or the cheaper titanium, stainless steel is going to be more corrosion resistant, so it's going to last longer than titanium. So depending on what your living conditions are, this is going to be very important for you. for most people, I would say stainless steel is going to be the best way to go. And most of the stainless steel that you get, it's going to be a higher grade of stainless steel. It's going to be 304 stainless steel. The Remus, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so we have 303. Let's see. Maybe typo. In the tubing, and then 416 stainless at the tips. 400 is a little bit of a lesser quality stainless steel. It's not as, resistant. It's not as durable as 304, but at the tips, it's not getting the hottest portion of it. It's getting the most breathability. It's not as low to the ground, so it's not as important for the tips to have that high quality 304 stainless. Let's look at the AWE. Yep, and AWE is 304 stainless steel as well. Let's see here. Let's see, I think that might be a typo. 303 versus 304. Oh no, that is a thing. What's the difference? 304 stainless similar to 304, but with sulfur added to help increase machinability while maintaining both corrosion resistance and mechanical elements that are associated with stainless steel. The added sulfur decreases corrosion resistance of grade 303 when compared to 304, but for certain applications, the machinability is worth the trade-off. Okay, so 304 isn't as corrosion resistant as 304. So I would say for companies that elect to use 303, because it's easier to work with in the machining process, there should be no excuse in terms of fitment. That's the trade-off, right? It's a small trade-off. So if you're somewhere like California, you don't really have to worry about it as much. You might want something that's going to fit better. So Remus in this case should have no excuse in terms of their exhaust fitting, because they're going with a lesser stainless steel in terms of durability. The trade-off is it should fit more often than not. It should fit even if you have aftermarket modifications, right? It should fit snugly. It shouldn't be hugging the corners. It should be in the center of that crevice that the exhaust runs along. That way it's easier for it to clear the bracing along the way, that it doesn't nick anything as it's kind of going up to the muffler or down from the, or sorry, as it's coming and joining the downpipe or anything like that. Let's see. 416 stainless steel. .304 is more resistant. Same thing. It's much easier to machine. Okay, so it's just easier to make. And heat treated and is magnetic, while 304 stainless steel lacks these traits. Yeah, generally speaking, the more, like, you can hold a strong magnet or any magnet to two pieces of stainless steel. The one that has a weaker pull to the magnet usually is higher quality. It's not the most perfect system, but as a quick general rule of thumb, like if you don't know, like if you just have two sheets, or if you got different clamps, or if you're in the hardware store and you're trying to tell which piece of stainless steel, like maybe you're in the scrap section or you're in the nut and bolt section where things always get mixed up, the labeling might not always be perfect. You could just take a magnet with you, and then whichever sheet, nut, bolt, whatever it is that you're working with, when you're comparing the two different items, generally the one with the weaker magnetic pull is the higher quality stainless steel. Let's see here. let's see. Aftermarket is used for these high quality materials like stainless steel or titanium. It's the grade. I think same thing. OEM uses a lesser grade. It's not as durable. 409, I think that's what it is compared to the 409. Sometimes using, yeah, I think they use like a 400 grade stainless steel. And then you can also kind of see it too. Like every stainless steel is going to discolor. It's not truly stainless, especially when you're subjecting it to that much heat. But generally speaking, you can look at the discoloration over time. Like if all things being equal, you can look at a 304 and a 400 grade stainless steel, and you'll see that the 400 grade has a little bit more wear to it. It has a little bit more, corrosion. It looks a little older, if you will, than the 300 grade. So when you're making the decision between stainless steel and titanium, and if you decide to go stainless, picking the grade of stainless is going to matter, right? What's important to you? If you live somewhere where there's a lot of salt, if they put a lot of stuff on the ground to kind of, melt the snow, if you will, or there's a lot of chemicals in your area for whatever reason, you might want to go with something that has 304 instead of 303, and you definitely don't want 400 because that's already what you have in your car from the factory. In terms of titanium, there are two grades of titanium. There's the cheaper titanium, and then there's the really expensive titanium that you find at like a Kropovich, and I forget the other brand off the top of my head, but there's another brand. But a Kropovich has one of the better titanium grades, if you will, and that's really expensive. Even that higher grade titanium isn't going to outlast a 304 stainless. Generally, the higher grade titaniums will last about 5 years or so. Maybe you'll get a couple more years out of that, but stainless can last, like 10 years and above. 8 years if you really beat on it, and depending on your living conditions. The lower grade titaniums, the reason why, and this is why I said marketing plays a huge factor into people thinking that they're getting a good exhaust, is a lot of race teams will buy the lower grade titanium. And the reason why is because, one, cost, it's cheaper, but these companies know that after a season of tracking the car, or maybe after 2 seasons, if it's not tracked, very heavily in a particular season, they're going to change out the exhaust, whether it would have been stainless, titanium, or whatever the exhaust is, just because of wear and tear, just because of newer innovations in technology, they're going to change the exhaust anyways. So they're okay with getting a lower grade titanium, saving some money, because generally after that year or two, after just beating on it in a track environment, it corrodes. It kind of degrades, if you will. And the same thing's going to happen if you buy one of these race or track version titanium exhausts. After a very short amount of time, which if you don't plan to keep your car that long, great. But if you plan to keep your car for 5-6 years, I wouldn't get a titanium exhaust if it's not from a name brand or backed by a very long warranty. So if somebody like FCP Euro or Turner Motorsports or ECS is saying, yeah, by our lifetime warranty, we'll honor this exhaust, no matter what, right? It's there with our replacement warranty, if you will. Then fine, go ahead, get the Kropovich or whatever titanium exhaust, because it's backed anyways. You can always replace it. You just have to deal with the shipping. So for that, I would say, unless you have your car for a short term, unless you're tracking, unless you have a lot of money, skip titanium. 304 stainless is the way to go for most people out there. If it's your daily, 304 is going to be the way to go. Yeah, it's going to be a little heavier, maybe even a little heavier than stock. In my experience, this exhaust from X-Force is about 10 pounds heavier. It's about like 50 something, like 53. And I think my old exhaust was like 40, 41, the OEM one. So it's, a little over 10 pounds more than the OEM setup, but it's going to last longer, right? It's It's a better grade of steel. It sounds better. I have more full control. All of the things that are associated with this particular exhaust. Now, the other thing that you're going to have to factor in when you're looking at the exhaust, other than, axleback or catback, titanium versus stainless steel, is going to be the design of the exhaust. Because it can play a factor into how it sounds, I would recommend that rather than trying to look at the exhaust and determine what sound it's going to do, just jump on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, and just listen to this particular exhaust on your particular car to figure out if that's the tone that you're going to get. One thing that I would recommend, though, is listen to a lot of them, because some people don't have a microphone capable of capturing the audio accurately, or they don't set their audio correctly. So you'll hear a lot of like the audio is just blown out. So that's not going to be an accurate representation. That the exhaust is going to sound terrible in that video, but in real life it could sound fantastic. So listen to a lot of different videos that have this exhaust. Listen to a lot of audio clips that have this exhaust, because you're not sure who's setting the audio correctly. Because they have to factor in it when they're doing the video, they want the low rumble of the idle, but then they also have to make sure that they're not clipping the sound when they say go to like 3, 4, or 5,000 RPM, or they're doing a flyby. And even when they're doing the flyby, like the initial and the end portion of that flyby might sound good, but as the camera person is panning with the car, technically they're getting closer. And then there's a point in time where the exhaust tips are very close to the microphone, and that portion could sound blown out. So even that's not a perfect representation. So don't just listen to like one, listen to a few, and then make your decision. I think one thing that people go for is like, oh, I want a loud exhaust, I want it to, sound like this. And so, I want, these features. The last thing I would say to factor in terms of your exhaust from a generic standpoint, not talking anything about a specific car, is drone. A lot of people will do a downpipe or a high flow cap, and that will get you some noise. The muffler, that's going to get you some noise. People want to do the resonator delete without realizing that that takes out a lot of the drone. So like when you're on the freeway, that woo sound, the resonator helps get rid of a lot of that, because for the most part, now that you've removed the cat, now that you have a higher flowing muffler, there's not a lot of things left in the exhaust to catch that reverb, to catch not just the sound waves that are coming out from, the combustion chamber, but, the gases, they're moving, right? So they're creating this vibration in the pipe. So you have the sound, you have the vibration, you have the actual gas molecules that are moving. So if you don't have some kind of physical element like a resonator to control or to temper that rumble, you're going to get that drone when you're at freeway speed, like fifth or sixth gear, and you're cruising in it, and it can hurt your head. It can give you a headache. So if you're somebody who commutes all the time, that's something to factor in. And what you see here with Remus, that's kind of what they're doing when they go to this two-pipe system. You also see it with the Varix valve system. The AWE system, I'm not sure. Let's see here. I know that they do yeah, so this looks like a single mid pipe. I don't know if this is the AWE. It looks like it because there's a clamp right here. So I'm going to assume that this is the AWE mid pipe. And if it is, it's a single pipe, and it deletes the resonator. And the way that it can do that safely without causing any issue is because of the chamber mechanism in here. So rather than going with two pipes out to the, like going single pipe from the down pipe, splitting it out to two pipes and then a muffler, everything is controlled by their muffler, and they have their own technology. I think they call it like their 360 technology. So what happens here with this system is the reason why you get that drone sound is because the gas molecules are somewhat imbalanced. They're kind of like, you can think about it almost as there's a single line and a bunch of people, they're trying to like wedge their way in as they're kind of going out of the tube, and they're kind of competing and bumping into each other, and there's no balancing mechanism, right? There's nothing to kind of even out the flow. Everyone is just funneling into this line, which is what happens with the AWE exhaust, as it's going through here, right? Like all those molecules are competing. That's to give you the woo. It's that imbalance. So what happens when you have this exhaust system with two pipes running is the gases will split up, right? And this is a passive system, right? This is like, not the exhaust is like saying banks 1, 3, and 5, and then 2, 4, and 6 will go into this pipe, and then the others will go into this pipe. That's not how it happens. It's just the gas molecules passively will get split in between these two pipes, and then as they rejoin, what happens is there's kind of like this vacuum effect where as the gas molecules are imbalanced, or they're partially imbalanced as they're going through this tubing in their respective tubings, as one leaves, it kind of pulls the other one with it. That helps to an extent getting rid of that drone. So if your exhaust system does not highlight key components in the muffler that, we have this, let's see here. Let's see here. It's just 180, not 360. Touring Edition axleback features AWE's proprietary drone canceling solution 180 technology. Let's see if we can get it in here without getting any copyright strikes. No. Let's see here. AWE 180. All right, so they make it, and so here's the cutout, right? So here's what I was saying is, right, when the exhaust gases are kind of going through it, they're imbalanced, right? Because there are so many molecules that are going through it. Here, their muffler, they say that, they have cutouts so the sound waves can kind of bounce around, kind of, get rid of some energy or lose energy in the form of heat, movement, all the other things, and then they come back in, and then they kind of get synced back up to whatever is going out here. That's just their way of doing it. Essentially, you get the same thing when you get more, I would say to a lesser degree. You get a very similar effect when you have the gases splitting and then coming here, because you get that vacuum effect to pull from it. So if there is not anything specific for your exhaust, like 180 technology, then you're going to want to look for a system, if it's getting rid of the resonator, that has some kind of at least passive mechanism to get rid of the drone. Otherwise, it's going to be humming real hard for you. And if you're into that, that's cool. Most people, they're not. So those would be the things that I would say to look out for. Axleback or catback, and then factor that into your pricing. Titanium versus stainless steel, I would lean, for most people, go with stainless, 304 stainless. The tips, could be whatever. Then you're going to want to look at the design to make sure that you don't have any drone. Does it have the dual piping that you see here, that you see in the Remus? Or do you have some kind of 180 technology in the muffler? The other thing too is if you're trading off 304 stainless steel, or sorry, 304 stainless steel for something like 303 or 400 grade, and they say the reason why we do this is because it's very easily malleable, then that thing better fit right out of the box. There better not be a whole lot of wiggle room, because that's what you're trading. You might not necessarily see a compromise in price because they're giving you something for what they're taking, right? They're saying, hey, we're giving you better fitment in exchange for some durability. So you might not necessarily see like, oh, we're going to 303 versus 304, or we're going to a 400 grade. Does that automatically mean you're getting a cheaper in price product? No. You're just getting a product that should, in theory, fit better than if it were to be made from 304. And we're talking about out of a whole batch, right? Because, you know, machinery, things have wear and tear. There's some sort of human element to it. So they're talking like, you know, maybe 90% of 304 will fit versus 95% of 303 will fit, and maybe 98 of a 400 grade stainless steel will fit. That's what they're saying. So unfortunately, you could always be with that smaller percentage that it just doesn't fit because of some sort of weird circumstance. But you know, 304 has been around for a long time, and it should be okay to work with. Also, the valves. Do you need to reuse a stock valve system? Do you want a more controllable aftermarket system when it comes to the valves, or do you just want to get rid of it entirely? Right there. All of these things hopefully will lead you into what is the right exhaust for you. So with that, we'll open it up for Q&A. CP, I'm guessing you're watching from Portugal. How's it going? I don't know why this. Let's see here. No, it doesn't give me an option to translate here. Well, welcome in. Jonathan, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. JK Coin, hi. What can you say about Valvetronic? Let's look them up. Since we're looking at the F-22, let's keep everything equal. Valvetronic. Oop. Here we go. Nope. What is going on? Here we go. Let's see. Okay, so everything is included. It looks like you get vacuum lines. So here's one thing that I will also say. The reason why I wanted full control is, you know, in case you ever get pulled over. What is it? Okay, so it gives you a new clip, which is nice because those clips either tend to fall off or they break pretty easily. So that's nice. I'm not the biggest fan of the valve going here because for the most part, the cop can tell if you have an aftermarket exhaust system just by looking at the tips. Even if you say have the OEM system with aftermarket tips, they're just going to say, oh, it's aftermarket because this is not what came on the car. And if they run a test on your car on the side of the road and they can see the valve, they're going to be like, no. Open that up. Because when you were running, it didn't sound like that. Open it up, put it in sport mode, whatever. The thing that I like about the Varick system is that the valve, let's see. The valve is on this side of the exhaust. So you can't see it. The valve is actually just behind where this connection point is, and then it splits off into these areas. So even if they say, oh, this is an aftermarket exhaust, okay, put it in sport mode, okay, you can still have this fully closed and they can't see it. They cannot physically, like even if they shove their flashlight in here, they're not going to be able to see around the bend to this portion. Just no way. So that's why I like the Varick system is if anything were to happen, and this unit, it's tucked up. It's very high. See, like here, you can see the valve. Like if you wanted to, depending on how low your car is, you could poke your head and you could see that. You could also see that valve mechanism right there. You could definitely see it through the piping, but there's no way that the cop can stick their head underneath your diffusion, underneath your car, look, around the diffuser. If they want to like kind of look in between that little hairline area that's between the diffuser and the bumper, they still won't be able to see it. It's all the way up there. There's no way that they're going to know. And unless they start like ripping apart your car, which they're not going to do on the side of the street, they would, I don't know how they would do it with a state ref. But again, at least in the initial point of contact, they won't see the valve. They won't see the controller. But let's see here. In terms of its construction, so it's 304, very good. Oh, it's just the muffler, right? Because that looks OEM. Yep, so this is going to be an axleback system. At 1,000, that's not bad. Considering axleback for Remus is 12, so you're saving about, is it 900 or? Okay, so let's call it 1,000. So you're saving about 250 from Remus. AWE, you are saving about 500. Yeah, so if you want to go axleback and you want to save the most money, you want to retain that valve function, that's not a bad option to go, because even if you were to say, oh, Remus is good too, Remus has all those issues that we are talking about earlier, is that you can see the valve from the piping. Now, you can also see it with the OEM system, but it's OEM, right? If they're going to tag you for an aftermarket exhaust, might as well, give them the hardest time possible to identify if you have a valve in there or not. Let's see here. Danilo. Hi, Fritz. I'm very interested in an electric cutout exhaust, but my question is, what would be the correct way to connect the cables to the battery, or is there a way to connect them to the fuse box? There is. You just have to use a wire tap or a fuse tap. In some cases, they do give you a hookup to hook it up to a cigarette lighter. I personally haven't done it because I don't want to cut or splice any wires. So if you can find one that lets you hook it up to a cigarette lighter in the trunk, you can just route it through one of the grommets up kind of like where the exhaust tips run, like just kind of behind there. There's some like plastic grommets at the top. Let's see if you can see it in one of these pictures here. No, like somewhere around here, like up at the top, like when this is all out, you can see that there are some rubber grommets that will lead up through the trunk liner, and then you just plug it into a cigarette lighter. So you can power it like that, and I think that's the best way to go. Victor, hi, the exhaust of my 2017 420i was straight piped by the previous owner. I added a Borla resonator and silencer. I didn't like it too loud. I would like if my car had valves to open and close the exhaust. Yeah, now at this point, your only option really, yeah, you'd have to get a whole new exhaust system. If you really wanted to, you could run it straight piped, and you could just get an OEM muffler to see if you can hook it back up, or run something completely aftermarket. That's unfortunate. Yeah, that is loud. I'll admit, like the X-Force exhaust on a Stage 2 tune from BM3 full bolt-on, it's loud. I'm actually going to detune it this week to get rid of some of the burbles. Yeah, but in all honesty, I kind of, I like it. I think there's some, I wish that they had some better clamps, but I like that it comes with everything. It comes with the tips. They don't charge extra for that. It comes with the clamps. The module on the exhaust is already installed. The only thing you have to figure out is where you're going to run this. I ran mine behind the rear passenger bolster, and then you get 2 remote keys. And then, of course, I hooked it to the cigarette lighter. Some people, they hardwire it into the car. It's not really what I want to do. Let's see here. Oh, the last thing I guess you could look for in terms of design is going to be how big the piping is compared to OEM. And based off of kind of like the bend, you'll be able to see if it's going to fit, how well it's going to fit, or how difficult of a time you are going to have getting it in. Let's see, 2.5 there. Let's see. Let's see, mid pipe. Nope. It doesn't talk about how. It doesn't talk about the diameter of the piping for this one. Let's see, Valvetronic. Lastly, new Y pipe. So that's the Y pipe right there. Exhaust flow. Mid pipe. Oh, that's for B58 and B46. Oh, 2 mid pipe to fit. Not to include one. Nope. Let's see. No? Let's see here. Tip options, 304, check engine light, perfect fitment. Oh, 3-inch bent system. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because it's running 3-inch all the way across, versus something like the X-Force, you're running 2.5 pipes all the way through. So, yeah. Yep. So those are the things that I would look out for if you're shopping or if you're in the market for an exhaust, if you're about to install one. Like I said, is if generally they just take the mold of the old exhaust and kind of make it run like that. There is going to be some slight variance because of exactly where the muffler is going to connect to the mid pipe. So the OEM setup, the mid pipe connects like right here. So there's a slight difference in angling because this is more medial than the old one. And then from there, the shape should follow, but generally speaking, like from the downpipe to most of the way to the muffler, you can see how your old exhaust is running, and you can just imagine, okay, if the pipe is a little bit bigger, if I'm running 2 pipes that are about this size, how close is it going to run me? Is this fitment going to be tight? So in the planning stages, just take a look down there and see, but if they guarantee the fitment, that should be good enough. Since there's no more questions, we'll call it for today. I hope all of you have a great day. I hope all of this will help you in your search for the best exhaust. So just make sure, last thing is going to be sound. Just watch a ton of videos on that, and that should give you an accurate representation, mostly just because of the mic capabilities for that specific video. If there's anything else, you guys have any other questions at all, please feel free to let me know at VroomTuber, whether it be on TikTok, Instagram, or you can drop a comment on this video. And I look forward to seeing all of you next Tuesday.